Well, welcome everyone. Shana Tova and happy anniversary. It's been exactly a year since the Olympic team qualified for Tokyo, and we're really excited to celebrate. We've got some great characters, some Maccabiah alumni, and some members of the Israeli national team that are going to be with us. And we're going to reminisce a little bit, talk a little bit of baseball, and have a great time. So what I'll ask is, for the time being, if you would all place yourselves in mute, feel free, please enter questions into the chat box and we'll get to as many as we can. And I'm really pleased to introduce our moderator today, Gabrielle Starr. Do we have any Red Sox fans here?
You certainly do.
Red Sox fans, all right. Well, Gabrielle's a huge Red Sox fan. She's a lifetime fan. She grew up down the street from Fenway Park. She is working in baseball and marketing and content creation. She's lived all over the place in New York and Israel and California, and she is the founder of Girl at the Game. That's where sports are covered by women for everybody to enjoy. In addition to running the content for Girl at the Game, Gabrielle's writing has been featured on Fangraphs, Hardball Times. She's also the host of Locks on the Sox and Locked On Podcast Network. So Gabrielle, thanks for making time for us today, and thanks for joining us.
Of course, this is such an honor, or as we would say in Hebrew, a kavod, to be a part of this amazing event and to see so many supporters of Team Israel. It's been great getting to know Peter and seeing his passion for baseball and especially for Team Israel, and just making baseball a bigger part of Israeli culture and hopefully raising awareness for how special the country is and how feisty our people are. It's great. So you guys ready to get started? Should we kick it off?
Thank you. I'll start talking. First of all, thank you both, Shane and Gabrielle, for the introduction. Very happy to be here with Maccabi USA, and to really commemorate. This is the 1 year anniversary that Israel made the Olympics. Exactly 1 year ago, I'll never forget the end of that game. It seems like yesterday. Eric Holtz, our manager, put in the IAB veteran Shlomo Lipitz to throw that the last few pitches to the last out. The ball went to right field. Simon Rosenbaum nestled under it, and he caught that ball. And that was just like 20 years of hard work coming together in that one moment. It was amazing. Team Israel was Olympians, and that was just an amazing thing to be there and to be part of that. I'm happy to have the two guys right now with us, Eric and Nate Fish, who both got to know them 13 years ago when they came over to Israel in the IBL, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but also with Maccabiah. They have really good backgrounds with Maccabiah. They both coached Maccabi USA teams in the Maccabiah in Israel, and I'm sure they'll talk about that also. We're also supposed to have on Alon Leishman, who's still trying to get on, but he's right now on a flight to the States, and he's going to try to come on, and we'll see if he can get that and get on here. I also want to do a shout out. I think that there's some Team Israel players on here. I see Gabe Kramer. There's a few other guys on here. I think Bertram also, Scotty's on here. Some other guys. So I'm glad to have them on with us to celebrate this anniversary. And we're looking to have maybe some more guys come on later on. First of all, I'm honored to tell the story about Israel baseball in the international arena. If anybody doesn't know my story, I've been living in Israel for about 30 years now. I've been president and secretary general of the IAB. Right now I'm the general manager of Team Israel, of Olympic Team Israel, and the WBC team. The IAB is a nonprofit organization in Israel dedicated to promoting baseball and developing baseball in Israel. We have over 1,000 kids playing baseball from Misgav in the north to Beersheba in the south of Israel. We also send national teams overseas every year, mostly to European tournaments. I'm very proud of the Olympic team, but in some ways I'm even more prouder of our U18 team. Last year they won the European Championship B pool, and those are kids who grew up in the program in Israel. They grew up in the academy in Israel. They grew up with our coaches in Israel, and they were able to do this achievement in Europe, which was never done before. This past summer, they were supposed to play in the A pool, but that was postponed until next summer because of the corona. But we wish them a lot of luck, and a lot of those guys are now going into the Army, doing their Army services and becoming a sportaim in the Army as well. We also build fields in Israel with the help of the JNF of Project Baseball. Right now, the field in Beit Shemesh is being built. It's phase 1 of that field. It's $1.1 million that's been invested there for phase 1. Phase 2 and 3 will be coming as soon as we get more donations, and we're looking for more donations all the time. There's also a new field going up in Renana, which is now in tender, and we hope by the end of the year that'll start building. And there's also very hot in Tel Aviv, the Sport Tech field in Tel Aviv. We're in negotiations with the city of Tel Aviv municipality to put up lights there, to make it a little bit bigger field, to put fencing around it. So there's very great opportunities there as well. It's important to have these fields in Israel because the adage, if you build it, they will come, is completely true. But the main reason you're here is to hear about our international teams and our international episodes. I'll try to give some background, put everything into a context, and talk about how the American Jewish community, guys like Gabe Kramer, came to Israel, made Aliyah, guys like Fish made Aliyah as well, and came to help their Israeli brethren, in this case, to build a team that can be in the Olympics, that can be internationally, do very well. It actually started in Boston, Gabrielle, Boston with bagels and cream cheese. Anybody, a lot of these guys on the call here know Larry Barris. He actually came to me in 2006. We met together, and he told me he'd bring professional baseball to Israel. I said, you're crazy. And 6 months later, there were 120 players, 6 teams, and coaches like Art Shamsky, Ken Holtzman, and Ron Blomberg. They played a 40-game season. Fish and Eric were both on that team, on those teams. Also, Alon Leishman was there. After the summer, he went bankrupt, but a lot of the contacts are still with us today. And certainly a lot of people on this call are from, I know from that period of time. We're celebrating their bar mitzvah this summer. That was 13 years ago. Fast forward to 2012, the WBC qualifiers. We were invited to come to the qualifiers. We built a team with Brad Ausmus as the manager. Sean Green played on that team. Gabe Kapler. Unfortunately, we lost in the qualifiers. 4 years later, in 2016, we went to the qualifiers again in Brooklyn. This time we had guys like Jason Marquis. We had Ike Davis on the team. There's the heritage rule of the WBC. I'm sure you all know about that, where anybody who has Jewish, can according to the law of return of Israel, can become an Israeli citizen, can also play for Team Israel. So we had a team of about 24 Jewish American guys and 2 or 3 Israelis. And we won in Brooklyn the qualifiers. In January, there was a visit to Israel from the players. And there was a documentary called Heading Home, which was made, which got a lot of publicity around that. And in 2017, we went to the main tournament in Korea. Nate was one of our coaches there. ESPN thought we had great chances, and they called us the Jamaican bobsled team before we went there. Nobody gave us a shot. Nobody gave us any chance to do anything. And we proceeded to win the first 3 games in Korea. So we beat Korea, we beat Taiwan, and we beat the Netherlands. We went up to the next level, to Japan, flew to Japan, and there we beat the Cuban national team. And to beat the Cuban national team was quite an achievement. After that, we came back down to earth. We lost to the Netherlands, we lost to Japan. In the end, out of 16 teams, we came in 6th place. And that was quite an achievement for Team Israel. Team Israel was definitely on the international baseball map. So I had a dilemma because on the one hand, I had this team of Jewish American players who did all this work for Team Israel, who were proud to have Israel across their chests. On the other hand, we had a national team made up of Israeli nationals, all with Israeli passports. We were pretty mediocre in the European Championship. We've been in the B pool. We came in 2nd place in the B pool. And I was wondering how I could merge the teams together. And the International Federation came out and said that the baseball would be back in the Olympics in 2020 in Tokyo. I put together a roadmap, exactly what we'd have to do to get there. I sat with Eric and I sat with Fish in a Holiday Inn breakfast in New York, in Manhattan. I'm sure they both remember it very fondly. And I said to them, this is all we have to do. Just in the summer of 2019, go to 4 different tournaments, a matter of 10 weeks in 4 different countries in Europe, and win every tournament. And they looked at me and said, you're crazy, but they said, we're in, we're with you, we'll do it together with you. And I met with a lot of the guys from the WBC team. I met with guys like Gabe Kramer, who's on this call, and talked to them about making citizenship and making Aliyah, and they all readily agreed to it. And they came, and 18 guys made Aliyah between 2018 and 2019. It's not an easy process to make Aliyah. These Jewish American players came, went through the process, went through the procedure, came to Israel. In June of 2019, we went to Bulgaria, lovely country, big baseball empire. And we played their tournament against other B pool teams. We beat them 6-0. They were very difficult games. We didn't have our big guns then, and it wasn't easy. There was some very close contests there. We beat Russia twice, and we won in Bulgaria. 3 weeks later, we had to go to Lithuania. You know, the guys flew back to the States. They flew back to Israel. We had to go to Lithuania. We beat Lithuania. 6 weeks later, we had to go to Germany. Germany was a very emotional tournament. A lot of the guys, their grandparents were Holocaust survivors. My parents were Holocaust survivors. But we went there. We played in the A pool in Germany. We had to be in the top 5 in order to advance to the next tournament in Italy, to the Olympic qualifiers. We came in 4th place. So 3 days later, we found ourselves flying to Italy for the Olympic qualifiers. The first 3 games, we played the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place teams from the European Championship a few days before. Each of those teams had beaten us a week before. And we ended up defeating Spain, defeating the Netherlands, and defeating Italy. And after 3 games, we were 3-0. We naturally lost the next game against the Czech Republic. And the 5th game was exactly 1 year ago today against South Africa. We won. We were Olympians. The guys had done the plan to perfection, had implemented the plan to perfection, and they were all Olympians. Since then, I've added a few guys. I've added some players. Ryan Lavarnway came to Israel last year, became a citizen. He's actually the first Israeli to play in MLB for the Miami Marlins. Yeah. And also Dean Kramer, who's been pitching for the Baltimore Orioles. He's the first born Israeli to pitch in the major leagues. And we wish him a lot of luck. We wish him really a lot of luck in that. I've also added a guy who has just 14 years of experience in MLB, 4 years an All-Star, a guy named Kinsler. He came to Israel, got citizenship right under the gun before the whole Corona mess and everything, but he's got Israeli citizenship as well. And there might be some more surprises coming. So Team Israel is ready. And why is this important? For 2 reasons it's important. One, as I mentioned before, the connection between the American Jewish population helping the Israeli Jewish population build a baseball team has been incredible. The work together, the cooperation together is very, very important for relations going forward. Things haven't been so good between the American and Israeli populations. The Jewish populations, all kinds of difficulties. But here in baseball and sports, we can see how we can cooperate and build a real international power. The second thing is Israel. In Israel, it's been going to the Olympics. There have been 9 medals altogether in the Olympics. It's the first time in 45 years Israel is sending a team to the Olympics since the Montreal Olympics in 1976. And it's big because if we win a medal, everybody remembers who wins medals. But let's put everything into proportion. We have 7.5 million Jews in Israel, 7.5 million Jews in America, approximately, 15 million Jews altogether. Our 3 competitors so far are South Korea with 52 million people, only South Korea, not including the Koreans in America, the Koreans in North Korea. Mexico has 125 million, and Japan has 130 million people. So we're really an underdog. We're really the David against the Goliaths of the world. The IAB hopes to grow baseball in Israel. I hope to double and triple the numbers soon because of the 2 effects, one getting a medal and the other building the new fields. We need help. We need assistance from donors, from sponsors that can help us. And we're looking for that help. If anybody wants to get in touch with me afterwards, please let me know how you can help us. I'll let you know how you can help us. But that's the story. And now I'll give it back to Gabriel and we'll let Eric and Nate talk.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Peter. It's, as is typical of Jewish tradition, a true underdog story, and baseball just makes it even better. Eric, I'm gonna toss it to you. How did you get involved with Team Israel from the beginning? Like how did you become connected to Israel,
so
years ago?
All right, so for me, Gabrielle, I made my first trip to Israel in 1977 for my bar mitzvah. I had not been back to Israel until 2007, as Peter mentioned, in the IBL, the Israel Baseball League. And I was named a player coach for the Beit Shemesh Blue Sox. And that was a great summer. It was incredible. Even though we weren't on the same team, Nate and I, Nate kind of became like my little brother. We were roommates for 10 weeks in Israel. We talked baseball till 3 in the morning every night. And when it was time to play against each other, obviously we weren't friends at that point, but it was one of the greatest summers ever. But I got to meet some tremendous people, including Peter and the entire board of the Israel Association of Baseball. From 2007, Nate called me probably in about, I'm going to say 2012. I hadn't been to Israel in 6 years. And Nate kind of opened my eyes to what Maccabi USA was. And I really didn't have a whole lot of background into Maccabi. And Nate said, hey, I'm going to be the head coach of Team USA. Would you like to coach with me? And it was an incredible opportunity to get back to Israel, be able to coach and compete, and then spend, another 3 weeks seeing the country that I missed so much. We had an unbelievable time. We won the gold medal. And at that point, when I left to go home, Nate made Aliyah and stayed in Israel to really try and build baseball there for some time. Over the course of the next couple of years, Fred Cohen contacted me and asked me if I'd want to be the head coach of Team USA. At that point, I think Nate and Peter were discussing the possibility of the Israel national team. And when I said yes to coming back to Israel as the head coach in 2017, as Peter alluded to, we met at a Holiday Inn having breakfast. Peter scratched a bunch of names on a napkin and said, here's all we have to do. We have to win these 4 tournaments and we'll be Olympians. And, little by little, Peter, so we won a gold medal, and I'm going to turn my computer over. This is my office, and hanging there is my Team USA jersey from Maccabi, and right next to it is Team Israel. So I live this stuff, and it remains with me every day. I'm going to say we won the gold medal with Maccabi on Tuesday. On Wednesday, I became head coach of Team Israel. I had about a week to get to know the guys. We got on a plane and went to Serbia. And, with, like Peter said, a pretty mediocre team. We came in second place. We kind of ran out of pitching a little bit. Went back to Israel I went back to Israel for a couple of days before heading back to the States. And Peter asked me if I would stay on and remain with the team going forward. At that point, Peter and the board and so many of Peter's contacts, we sat down and figured out how to make the Aliyah process a little bit more feasible for the guys. And, here we are. I mean, we lived through some of the greatest battles that endured last summer. Peter didn't mention, we had 2 really tough games with Team Russia. As expected, Russia's entire infield was made up of Cuban nationals who were supposedly Russian citizens. And with an all Cuban infield and Cuban pitchers, we beat them twice, walking off on them 2 different times to move forward and win. For me, I didn't grow up with an incredibly religious identity. But this journey through baseball with Israel has just really gotten me closer to my identity and I'm going to say Judaism, but Zionism, and really believing so much in Israel. As the head coach of Israel, I did not have to make Aliyah. As Peter didn't mention me today, but I have decided with my family to make Aliyah as well. And I just started the process a few weeks ago. My entire family is going to be making Aliyah so that we will also be citizens of Israel. We just started the process. I'm really excited about it. For me, growing up and hearing so much, and as Peter, having friends and who might have lost parents or grandparents or aunts and uncles in the Holocaust, it's really tough to be able to duplicate and explain to you the feeling of wearing a Team Israel jersey in Germany, against Germany, and beating them on their home soil, just having the opportunity as a Jew to be playing in Germany, just talking about it right now, I just kind of got chills again.
Me too.
Of this entire journey. The only baseball, because I'm not a big collector other than, you know, stuff that means something to me. The only thing that I keep with me on my desk, it says final score, Israel 4, Germany 2. It just transcended baseball. It was one of those things that if you look back to history, within 24 hours, we defeated Great Britain and Germany. And what that did and what it meant to so many people. There were people crying in the stands. It's just what helped bond our team together. And like Peter said, and I attest to it, we were the Jamaican bobsled team. What made us different was we had 24 guys and an entire coaching staff that just refused to lose. Everybody literally did whatever it took. There were no egos. And I'm talking ex-big leaguers came to me and said, Skip, we'll do whatever you need. We want to get to the Olympics. And after going 3-0 in Italy, like Peter talked about, I'm not going to say that the guys got too confident, but, you know, we kind of looked past the Czech a little bit and the Czech beat us. And all we had to do was win one more game. We had to beat South Africa to become Olympians. And I'm a real passionate guy, but I'm not a big rah-rah guy. And we were on the bus, Gabrielle. We're about 5 minutes away from the stadium. South Africa's there ready to play us. And I stood up on the bus and I just looked at the entire team and I said, listen, if you guys take care of what we've got to take care of today, we're the only team in this tournament that controls our own destiny. We leave the hotel as a baseball team and we will return as Olympians. And the whole bus goes crazy. I mean, guys are banging on the roof, on the glass. South Africa never knew what hit them. And here we are in a Corona year talking about hopefully playing next July. But I promise you, Gabrielle, we'll be ready to go.
Wow, amazing. First of all, mazel tov on making Aliyah with your family. I can tell you, as the daughter of somebody who has been begging his wife to make Aliyah for the past 20 years, my family is very jealous. I have some questions in the chat that I want to throw to you, Nate, Peter, Shane, anyone who wants to kind of step up to the plate, literally. Maybe you want to start, Eric, since you're the skipper. Let's see. People want to know what the response has been from the public in Israel. Do team members get recognized on the streets in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem? What's it like to be on Team Israel when you're in Israel?
So I'm going to let Peter answer that because Peter's in Israel and I'm in New York. I will tell you one quick funny thing, and Peter, I hope you mentioned something along these lines. Danny Valencia, a year out of the Olympics, is still upset that he's not on a Wheaties box in Israel.
I don't know if they have Wheaties in Israel, but they do have this really good cereal that's shaped like stars and it tastes like honey. So maybe he could get on that instead. I've never seen Wheaties in the supermarket there, though.
Peter, you want to take this?
Sure. Unfortunately, they're not recognized in the streets of Israel yet. I go around a lot of times with the hat that Eric is wearing in Israel, hoping that people will recognize that, but nobody does right now. But we are getting a lot more press coverage right now. Being an Olympic team, when the guys were here in January, I brought them here in January before the whole Corona mess, and we did some press conferences. We met with the president of Israel. We actually had some nice film from the shuk in the market in Tel Aviv. The guys went there in their uniforms. They were all dressed in their uniforms, and they made a lot of pictures and everything were made from that. I think at one stage they wanted to have that. If anybody who's been to Israel knows, when you leave the airport, on the side there's a whole wall of pictures, and they were planning on putting those pictures up there, but then the Corona mess came and who knows when that's going to help. What's going to happen with that? I really hope that with the medal and with the Olympics, we'll get a lot more coverage and guys will be recognized in the streets of Tel Aviv. But today, unfortunately, they're not.
I remember a few years ago, there was in Ben Gurion, when you land and you're arriving, there's the ramp and they changed the artwork every year. And a few years ago, it was famous Jewish and Israeli athletes. So maybe next year for Tokyo, Ben Gurion will do that for you guys. I know we have some Team Israel players in attendance. Does anybody want to talk about their personal experience joining the team, getting involved, how it has either created a new Jewish identity for you or changed the Jewish identity that you already had? Maybe Nate wants to start, or Blake. I know a bunch of you are on the call. So if someone wants to just shout out, because it's hard to see I can't see everyone's screens at once.
Joey, want to talk about it? Joey, talk about it. Take off the mute.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, I just want to say thanks, first of all, to everyone being here, celebrating this day. This is, man, what a day it is. You know, a year ago today, celebrating on the field. I was just watching some of those videos today, and it gives me goosebumps. It's something that Peter mentioned we worked a long time for, and just to be a part of it, it's something pretty magical. So I'm just happy to be here, happy to be on the call with you guys, happy to be celebrating this day, and hopefully moving forward we have lots more to celebrate. So I'm just happy to be here. I'll kick it over to my guy Shlomo Lipitz, who recorded the final out to make us Olympians, and a big part of the reason that we're here. Shlomi.
Wags, that was very, very modest. You had a big part of the team's success. You put up some big numbers over there, brother.
I appreciate that.
I don't know what Shlomo is, but just to give you guys an idea of what Joey did for us as a team, Joey took the ball against Spain after Spain had beaten us a few days prior in Germany, and Joey took the ball in Italy in game one against a heavily armored Spain team, and all he did was throw a 9-inning complete game shutout, and came back on 3.5 days rest and started the last game against South Africa. And when I spoke to him in like the 5th or 6th inning and asked him how he was feeling, he gave me a look like, if you think about taking me out right now, Skip, I'm going to kill you. So he was a huge part of the success of this team, and Joey wouldn't be here without you, kid.
Thank you, Skipper. I appreciate that, man. This is a team. This is the whole team, and I don't really have a whole lot of words for today. Just watching some of these videos takes me back to being in Italy and celebrating with these guys, and the run that we went through, going back talking about Bulgaria, Lithuania, Germany, and Italy, all 4 tournaments. It took so much just to get where we are. And again, all I can do is look forward and be happy that we're here, and be hopeful that we get to have a chance to celebrate again.
Awesome. Gabrielle, one thing I'll mention, you're looking for like some Judaism, some points, and how it made you feel. I'm not a practicing Jew. I don't do Shabbat every week. And, I'm probably a bad Jew. I go to temple on the high holidays, and I am what I am. One of the things that I look forward to most was the board went out of their way every Shabbat to have team dinner for the guys. And whether that was in Bulgaria, now it's not exactly so easy to find kosher food in Bulgaria and Lithuania. Jordy Alter was having Shabbat dinner driven 150 miles from, the capital of Lithuania to meet us at our hotel. But it was something that we looked forward to, which brought us together. It's not normal. It's not usual for 35 Jewish ball players to be together at the same time, right? It doesn't happen. There may be one on a team, two on a team in Major League Baseball, but for the entire team to share that and to share the identity together and say some prayers, for me, it was kind of neat and something we look forward to as a team.
Yeah, I love that. Also, complete game shutout. That's some Sandy Koufax vibes right there. So very fitting for Team Israel in what would be the equivalent of, I guess, an early round of the postseason if the Olympics are the World Series in this metaphor. Somebody wants to know, is there a team minion? Are the guys, I know not everybody has, a religious Jewish identity. A lot of people, like Ty Kelly is a good friend of mine. He's definitely more of a cultural Jewish man and Zionist than he is a religious Jewish person. Are there guys on the team who are more religious and have more of the religious identity that have made that a part of your team experience in any way?
I'll answer that. First of all, on the Olympic team, there is one guy who keeps kosher, and there are some other guys who have backgrounds of being religious and having the religious background. Certainly on our other national teams, on our youth national teams, it's an issue. When we send under 15 teams and under 18 teams to European championships, we really need to make sure that they don't have games on Shabbat a lot of times, and they get kosher food there. And it's a difficult issue to deal with, but it's something that we deal with, and we have to deal with that. It's not a, we deal with that. Somebody asked a question about the kippot, the yarmulkes. Those were a WBC invention. They were, and also the mention on the bench. That was for the WBC team. That is not for the Israeli Olympic team, but that's very much for the WBC team, and that will remain with the WBC team. The Olympic team does not have yarmulkes. What's ironic is that we do keep on our hats during Hatikva. Most teams obviously take off their caps when the national anthem is on. When our national anthem is on, we keep our caps on, even though it's not a religious song or anything, but it's just something that traditional that we've done. I don't think there's any other sport that has guys wear caps during the national anthem, because no other sport has players wearing caps while they're playing. So it's uniquely baseball, and that's just something that we've been doing traditionally over the last 20 years or so.
Gabrielle, the WBC team needed a mensch on the bench. My whole team was full of menches.
Good.
A minion of menches. So probably the next two questions are probably split between the two of you. When are the final rosters for Tokyo due? And will the Olympics schedule around Shabbat? Or are we going to have like a whole team of Hank Greenbergs just opting out?
Luckily, there are no other holidays at that time of year. Tisha B'Av is before, and not even then. We do have a problem with the European Championship in September, which might be on some of the Jewish holidays there, but unfortunately, but luckily the Olympics are not. Shabbat, there will be games. Israeli national teams play games on Shabbat when we're required to. We're there for whenever the games are. The final roster won't be ready before maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the Olympics, early July.
Okay. And
right now we've got an extended roster of about 35 players, which we have to cut down to 24.
And I briefly mentioned Sandy Koufax a few minutes ago, just in passing, but as our most famous Jewish baseball player who is still alive, has Sandy Koufax, have you spoken to him? Has he said anything about the team? I don't actually know how involved he is in Israel in general, but I'm just, we had a question from Moshe Lehman asking if Sandy Koufax has made a single comment about the team or the qualifying or anything.
So I'll take this one. I haven't talked much. Hi everybody.
Hi Nate.
So we were going to our final game of the World Baseball Classic qualifiers in 2016. We were playing Great Britain in the finals, and the coaching staff was riding in a van. So it was me, Jerry Weinstein, who's also coached for the Maccabiah, and Barry Weinberg was our team trainer. He's sort of legendary trainer primarily with the Cardinals and Tony La Russa. But he got a text message on the ride to the game, and it just said, "Tell the boys good luck, Sandy." And so Barry they know when they have a personal relationship. So he just wanted, just very briefly, to say good luck and reach out. And, you know, even something as simple as that coming from him, when we share that with the team in the clubhouse or whatever, is a really powerful moment. So just very, very privately and very briefly, he wished us luck. But so that's sort of a cool story, you know.
That's amazing.
I want Nate to talk a little bit about his time in the wilderness with Team Israel and his 3 years as the head of the Israel Association of Baseball, the executive director, when it was really wilderness out there. What was it like? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, hey, this was before I started the trend, I think. All the guys made Aliyah in 2018 and 19. I did it in 2013. Like Holtzy said, me and him were there coaching the United States team for the Maccabiah in 2013. And I had previously agreed with Peter that I was going to come to Israel for that time between the 2012 and the 2016 World Baseball Classic, the qualifying rounds, to see what we could accomplish, like, and really, really put our nose to the grindstone and go into schools and start lots of programs and see if we could develop baseball in Israel. I was sort of the first person that had come in with some high level baseball experience to basically have this role of national director. And it's really, really challenging. Trying to sort of penetrate the mainstream of Israeli culture is not easy. Those things just sort of happen on their own oftentimes, whether things become popular or not in different places. But we made a lot of progress. The number of kids playing in the country went up by about 20%. We started the Israel Baseball Academy that's recognized by Major League Baseball for all the top players under 21 years old in the country. We started a coexistence program for Jewish Israeli and Arab Israeli kids to play together that continues on. So on many, many fronts, we made lots of progress. It is not as glamorous as something like going to the Olympics or going to the World Baseball Classic. So there's these two different things. There's the very grassroots development in Israel that happens, and then there's the more high-profile international events that we all get to enjoy, where, you know, people are paying much more attention. But really, the real work is very much like with kids in schools and in communities in Israel, trying to popularize the game there. So, yeah, I could go on endlessly about it, but I'll leave it at that for now.
That's amazing. Kenny Silverboard wants to know if anyone involved in the 1 year of the IBL can give a behind the scenes story or two. And he says he read your blogs during that time. So I don't know if you have a story from the blogs that you want to tell, or if you have a story that you didn't blog about. But I think that would be really cool to just share a little behind the scenes action from the beginnings of that.
From the Israel Baseball League?
Yeah, he said in the 1 year of the IBL. I don't know if that means the first year or...
It was only 1 year.
Right.
The first and only professional baseball league in the Middle East.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, Holtzy, the day we rolled up there, we had been imagining like a, you know, really legit professional baseball league. I don't know, living in a hotel on the beach. There had been a draft that Jeremy Schaap from ESPN had hosted it. It had the appearances of a legit professional baseball league, but we got a taste of what it was going to be like right away. First day we rolled up, and we weren't. My expectation was that we were going to, I guess, live in the hotels that everyone is familiar with on the beaches of Tel Aviv. But we were housed in Kfar Hayarok, which is a boarding school for Ethiopian Israeli kids with behavioral problems that sort of resembled a row of storage units. So we slept 4 to a room in there, and boom. So we got a taste right away of what the summer was going to be like. It was a little grimier than what we had expected, but you know, everyone, me and Holtzy were roommates for the summer. And it was, you had to have some grit to get through it, but if you were willing to deal with that stuff, it was a really rewarding experience too.
Gabrielle, it was an absolute nightmare. At 41 years old, I was sharing a bedroom with 3 other adults that, I mean, I hadn't done since I was in college. It was awful.
It was
but it was the greatest summer ever because, you know, there were 120 players from all over the world, and we played baseball, you know, 6 days a week. And you know, it's like the seeds that were planted, and now here we are today, like Peter said, in our bar mitzvah year, 13 years later. Had that not happened, where would we be today? For me, one of my fondest memories, it's such a mess that I hope you understand, and you know, what I'm trying to get at here. 120 players, all living together, all eating together on 6 different teams. So we're in the same dorm, same cafeterias. Nobody knows what we're doing with lawn.
Sounds like a bubble.
Yeah, well, yeah, it was the first bubble. Nobody knows what we're doing for laundry. So after the first day, they hadn't set up laundry for 120 guys.
Oh, no.
So they figure out
athletes too, not just guys.
They're sending laundry to a place that comes back, and a pickup truck literally dumps everyone's uniforms on the ground. 120 sliding shorts, uniforms, pants, belts, socks, whatever. And everybody had to go rummage through it every day to be prepared to play. And that's kind of, if that doesn't give you some sort of idea of how we live for 10 weeks, I don't know what else I can share with you.
I see a guy online here who's smiling and laughing all the time. Wasn't he the one responsible for that? Andrew Wilson, why don't you talk about your responsibilities there a little bit?
Andrew was the most professional of that league.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't say I was responsible for that, but no, it was, as Eric mentioned, it was a summer that, you know, everyone will always remember. Again, I learned the word balagan as soon as I landed, because one thing that Eric and Nate might have not mentioned was that one of the fields wasn't built yet when the league was about to start. So we were supposed to have 3 fields, but we only had 2 ready to go. So there was a delay with that. But with all that being said, we finished the season. We had professional stats. The games were played. Opening night was, I think, something that we'll always remember, with 3,000 plus people there. But yes, the logistics needed to be worked out better, but memories will last a lifetime.
Yeah, and I mean, many people that were involved in that league are still involved. So in some ways, it felt like a failure at the time. In hindsight, it was a success because it sparked these now decades-long relationships with one another and with Israel baseball, and it gave us this core community of people that are still in the mix. So.
Just a shout out to Mark Ratner and Bob Ruxin, who are both on this call as well, and were both involved from 13 years ago.
I mean, that your experience kind of sounds like you guys were getting the full Sabra experience of really, you know, like the desert fruit and flower that can only bloom in adversity, and really just, you know, you got to be sharp on the outside to protect yourself, and then you can play your baseball, but only if you make it through kind of the gauntlet of, I mean, I did a semester abroad in Israel in high school, and our dorm was comparable, and they would bring our laundry and throw it in a pile. I mean, our laundry was in bags, but still they would just they'd be like, your laundry's back, and it'd be like a pile of bright green bags that didn't have any markings on them, and you know, it was a total balagan. We have a few more questions. Moshe Lehman wants to know if there's a rabbi on the team for blessings, and if Mendel the mascot will be back for the Olympics.
We do not have an actual rabbi, but we have had guests that have shown up. And like I said before, we will not have any other Menches or Mendels on the bench. I saw there was another question about Rockland and the Rockland Boulders.
Yes.
And if everything goes forward, the answer is yes. We've already started preparing a schedule similar to this year, for next year in Rockland, so everybody in the New York area or the tri-state area would get a chance to see us training before we actually leave for Tokyo.
Well, if you need a rabbi, I'm sure my dad would be very happy to volunteer because there's nothing he loves more than Israel and baseball. Chaz Chester wants to know if women's athletics and baseball in Israel are blossoming as well, or if the uptick and increase in baseball interest there is more specifically male dominated.
Unfortunately, from 1,000 players playing baseball, there's a handful of women, maybe 10 or 15 girls mostly, but there is women's softball. There's a league of about 3 or 4 teams of women's softball, and they're in Beit Shemesh, they're in Modi'in, they're different places around, and they play, and it's very nice to watch them. There's also a women's softball national team, which tried to get also into the Olympics through the European Championships, so they also are playing European baseball. And what was the other question? Baseball is not that popular right now. It's certainly not like basketball, but that's our goal. And again, if we get a medal in the Olympics, and when we build these fields, and we're looking for donations and people who can donate, please get into contact with me or through the JNF. We really want to build these fields, and we can build them. And once we build them, and we have the Olympics and the Olympic medal, that will be certainly a link there. Shane just put up a link for the donations through the JNF, and appreciate that.
We have a specific question for Nate Fish. Lee Lowenfish wants to know what your cap signifies that you're wearing right now.
Just trying to cover up my hair. It just says, yo, a friend of mine made it. Not a lot of symbolism or significance. It's just sort of a cool hat, a cool design that my friend made and sent to me.
For a Jewish Zoom call, though, he should have said it said "Oi, Gabrielle."
Yeah.
I was wondering if his camera was flipped and it actually said "Oi," and I was like, "Oh, that's perfect. That'd be a great Team Israel. Put Yiddish terms on all of these."
I'll ask him if he.
Gabrielle, I got one fun thing I'd like to share, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
About a month ago, I was part of a fundraiser for the Israel Cancer Research Fund, and I didn't realize, kind of the people that are involved in that. So I had to film like a 90-second clip, and this is usually something done in person, black tie in the city. So I sent it along. And long story short, they forwarded me the final copy, and it was Eugene Levy, Eric Holtz, Brian Cranston, and then at the end, Jason Alexander kind of begged his way onto the coaching staff, reminding people that he was the traveling secretary for the New York Yankees, the Seinfeld episode. That was kind of fun.
Oh, I love that. I absolutely love that. We have a few more questions. I'm going to let you answer this one. Are there any Arab Israelis who play on the Israel baseball teams, you or Peter? Can ask. Unfortunately,
there's none on the national team. We have actually about 30 kids playing up north next to Mizgav. Actually, I don't know if he's still on here, but Yaniv is our national director right now, and he probably could talk more about that because that's in his area. But there are about 30 kids playing up there, and we hope that maybe for the next Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles, we can have Arab kids on the team. We'd love to have Arab kids on the team.
Yeah,
and
that would definitely go a long way for just the global image. I think. Kind of disprove a lot of people who don't really know what they're talking about.
There's been one as far as I know, one person of Lebanese descent playing in Major League Baseball. That's Khalifa. I forget his first name right now. I think he played for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He was a shortstop.
Amazing.
By the way, tomorrow night, there will be, for the first time in Major League Baseball, there will be, and this is from Danny Grossman, who's a writer for the Jerusalem Post. Tomorrow night, for the first time in Major League Baseball, will be a game where both starting pitchers are Jewish. It will be the Orioles with Dean Kramer against the Atlanta Braves with with Max Fried, and they're both, by the way, graduates of Maccabi USA, played for Maccabi USA in the Maccabiah in Israel. And I tried to get both of them on these calls, but obviously they're pitchers and they're pitching, and they're both too busy for that. But they both give their regards to everybody.
That's wonderful. That's so cool. And I think for our final question, we'll take Alan Malter's question. Who designed the Israel baseball logo? They really like it, and they think Alan says it's a cool design.
Unfortunately, I don't know who designed it. Somebody designed it. It was Dan Rotham's friend, wasn't it, Fish?
Yeah, Asaf and Dan hired a friend of theirs in probably about 2012 to create the new logo.
But that's the logo that Eric is having. That's the hat, the IAB logo that Eric is wearing. I see somebody else has the WBC logo on their cap, which is with a Jewish star, the Magen David. But that's the WBC logo as opposed to the IAB logo, which is what Eric is wearing.
We have one more thing from Danny Grossman. There's a photo of Ian Kinsler apparently with a shofar, but I don't think I have the sharing capabilities to display that. Maybe if you send it to Shane, because he's the owner of the Zoom call, Danny?
I can try to share it quickly.
I sent it to Shane. You should have it.
Yeah, I tried. It wouldn't let me. Maybe because I'm on an iPad.
I put that in an article. I put that in an article the week that he came, and the caption was "Shofar so good."
Can you see it?
Yeah, he made that face a lot during the 2018 postseason. That's familiar to me.
That's awesome.
Ian arrived to Israel, but I don't remember the exact date, but it was sometime in March. It was during Purim. He arrived at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. At 8 o'clock at night, Bibi Netanyahu went on television and said there will now be a quarantine of 2 weeks of anybody who arrives to Israel. He was in Israel for 3 days. I think he saw at least 200 of our kids in different clinics when he was here in those 3 days. Went to the Interior Ministry, got his passport, and is now and would love to come back to Israel to do more.
Wonderful. It's amazing. Do we have any final questions? Anyone want to?
I just want to say thanks, Gabrielle. Thanks for moderating, and to our panelists, Peter and Eric and Nate, and Alon out there somewhere in midair
in the sky,
and all the members of the team who joined us today. We're very proud of you. And we wish you lots of luck and can't wait to cheer you on in Tokyo next summer. Maccabi USA is moving forward with plans for the 21st Maccabiah, which will be held in 2022. So if you know of athletes or potential coaches or managers or medical team members, please by all means encourage them to submit their applications. There will be an under-18 baseball tournament, God willing, on a new field, Peter, right?
Yes, definitely. Two new fields.
There you go. It's terrific. So I want to thank you all for your support. You know, Maccabi USA is a nonprofit, and we really appreciate your generosity. So if you are inclined, you can certainly donate. I'll post a link in the chat. Hopefully you're enjoying these Maccabi USA at Home sessions. We have a great one tomorrow night, not to take away from the epic pitching matchup, but we have the Jewish Jet. Jared Firestone. He is an aspiring Olympian. He is an Israeli skeleton athlete. So for everybody who is wondering about skeleton and what kind of crazy Meshuggah person would do that, check out Jared tomorrow night at 7 Eastern. And I'll also post the link so you can register for Jared. And wish you guys all Shana Tova and upcoming Easy Fast Gmar Chatima Tova to everybody. Thanks so much for joining us.
Shane, thanks for having us. And great to see everybody. And thank you, everybody, for the support. Even in these crazy times, you know, everybody's trying to stay positive. And I promise you, we'll be ready to go next year. All right. So keep that support going, and we will see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. This was incredible. And good luck to our team. Can't wait to root for you guys in the Olympics, obviously.
Thank you, everybody. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Shana Tova.